Hinata, one more thing. Huh? Yes, Suga-san? They won't think you're weak. Tsukishima, Yamaguchi, and Kageyama love you very much. That's why they worry, but they don't think that you are weak. Please keep that in mind. His ribs hurt, and the blood was pooling in the injured areas, making them feel hot. Every breath hurt, and he could feel the tears stinging in his eyes again. Tears of frustration mixed with those of pain and threatened to spill over. What are you doing there? Hinata startled. He sniffled a little and wiped snot, tears, and blood from his face. Nothing. His voice sounded shaky, and he tried with all his strength to pull himself together. He had hoped so much that no one would see him. Why Tobio out of all people? Shoyo? Hinata took a last deep breath before turning around slowly. Kenma's words played on repeat in his head. We just pretend that it is a prank. He could see the change in his boyfriend's expression. It shifted from his usual grumpy face to utter shock. Kageyama slowly, hesitantly made a step towards the spiker. When he reached out his hands, trembling a little, Hinata caught them mid-air. He couldn't let him get too close, or he would notice that it was real. I'm sorry. He hated how his voice trembled and how weak he sounded. Kageyama remained silent and seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. He gulped. The seconds passed, but Kageyama stayed silent. So, what happened? His brows furrowed and his eyes frantically scanned over the wounds, over traces of blood and developing bruises. It's nothing. What happened? Hinata gulped. It's a prank. It's nothing. What happened? Hinata gulped. It's just... His throat tightened. The more he tried to say the words, the harder it got. His breath hitched and he choked on his sobs. Pull yourself together. And with that, welcome to today's video. In other words, pretend to get beat up. What if? The story behind this is pretty simple. I rewatched my previous videos about this series and thought to myself, what if they wouldn't have pretended that it's a prank? Or if the others just immediately could call their bluff? How would the story have developed differently? And if you were wondering the same thing, then here, I have the video for you. I hope you will like it. I'm sorry, that was my pets. I hope you will like it. Let's go. It's just... His throat tightened. The more he tried to say the words, the harder it got. His breath hitched and he choked on his sobs. Pull yourself together. He couldn't do this. The seconds passed and he was still just standing there, babbling nonsense and crying like a toddler. He bit down on his lip hard to suppress the sobs and hiccups. It was a futile attempt. It hurt because with every sob his ribs ached and the pain flared up. Why couldn't he just say the damn words? Say it! The next time he opened his mouth, not a single sound came out. Kageyama looked at him helplessly. Hinata's hands, still wrapped tightly around his wrists, began to tremble. His whole body did, shaken by sobs. Suddenly, his legs gave out under him, and he fell, collapsed. Kageyama was too stunned to hold them. He grabbed his arms and softened the fall until they both sat on the ground. The ginger looked utterly broken as his hands covered his face in a vain attempt to hide the tears. He didn't even try to wipe them away anymore. Show. He gulped, terrified by the sight of his boyfriend in such a vulnerable state. The usually so confident, loud, and stubborn Spiker looked fragile, as if one word could make him break. He had never seen him as anything other than someone who never backed down, even if that meant defying the universe itself. It was the first time in years that Kageyama was afraid of his next words. The setup was never good with these kinds of things, but years of dating and living together made him feel comfortable in their communication, confident even. Yet, all it took were a few seconds, and it felt like he was where he started. It felt like nothing could have prepared him for this, for he never assumed that a day would come in which Hinata would look so utterly defeated. Shoyo, please, tell me what I should do. When Hinata didn't reply, his eyes searched the room frantically. He needed to do something, now. He desperately reached for the smaller, wrapping him in his arms and holding him close. At first, Hinata stiffened under his touch, and Kageyama could hear his breath hitch, but before doubt could inhabit his heart, the cold hands found his shirt and twisted the fabric to pull him closer. He cried against Kageyama's chest, while the younger just settled for rubbing his back. He wanted to say something, anything that could calm him, but nothing came to mind. Each word in his head sounded wrong and meaningless. He could feel tears stinging in his eyes and pulled the other closer, burying his face in the orange curls, and under all of that, a burning hatred started to assemble. Someone did this to Shoyo, his world, and warmth. Someone thought what they did was okay. Someone... A whine tore through the silence, somehow louder than even the rage igniting in his chest. It drowned out everything else and brought him back to the floor, back to Hinata. His grip on the smaller had subconsciously tightened. He could see a new kind of discomfort on his face, and the dark red spots on his chin reminded the setter of the reason behind all of this. Hinata was injured. Immediately he let go of him and backed away as if he had burned his hands. He only got so far since Hinata still clung to his shirt. It almost made them fall backward. Kageyama breathed in deeply. He needed to focus, just like on the court. As an athlete, injuries weren't foreign to him, but this was different. It was almost surprising how drastically the cause changes things, making him freak out and unable to assess the situation clearly and put his partner's health first. The simple fact that you could still see the shape of handprints in the reddening tissue made the bruises look so much worse. Wordlessly, he wrapped his arms around Hinata again, but this time he picked him up and carried him upstairs to the bathroom. The ginger said nothing and just let him. Part of him was relieved that even in this state he still trusted him. He would do everything to live up to this trust. He set him down on the edge of their bathtub and searched for the first aid kit. Where does it hurt the most? Are you bleeding? Hinata said nothing. His eyes were glued to the ground and he still felt unable to speak. Is it your head? Do you need to go to the hospital? He shook his head. Yes, the bruises on his jaw hurt, and there was a consistent throbbing in the back of his head, slowly beginning to grow into a full-on headache, but that was probably because of the stress and crying. He didn't get hit in the head like Kenma. He bit his tongue and tried in vain to fight the new tears building up at the thought. Shoyo, what hurts? My knees and sides. He forced the words out and with slow, hesitant movements pulled his pants up. Kageyama looked surprised at the clean white bandages that were wrapped thoroughly around the damaged parts. Suga treated them. The setter nodded slowly, silently thanking his former classmate. Do you want to take a bath? If we only fill it halfway and you keep your knees bent, the bandages won't get wet. I could wash your hair if you like. Maybe it will help a bit to make you comfortable. He fumbled with the first aid kit in his hands, waiting for a reply when the spiker nodded and proceeded to take off his shirt. Halfway through, he winced, and Kageyama was quick to help him, his jaw clenching as he saw the reason for his pain. On his ribs were huge spots of red tinting the skin and slowly turning blue. He tried to suppress his anger, knowing full well that it wouldn't help anyone right now, and focus on preparing the bath. Toyo, that's too much. Huh? Oh, right. I'm sorry. He fixed it, or at least he tried. Hinata placed a hand on his. It was a way to calm him. It made him feel less alone. To Kageyama it was good, a proof of trust and affection, but also a testament that Hinata needed him right now, that he was hurt and afraid. It distracted him enough to accidentally drain more water than intended, and he had to start over again. His frustration grew, however, mere seconds later it vanished at the familiar sound of a small chuckle to his right. He would gladly make a fool out of himself to bring Hinata's smile back, although that was something he most likely wouldn't admit out loud. When he finally managed to get the bath ready, he helped Hinata into the tub. The flames of wrath within his heart burned even brighter as he saw the entirety of the damage the stranger caused. He washed the spiker's hair carefully and thoroughly while trying to avoid any of the injured areas. It wasn't the first time he had done this, minus the injury aspect that is. He would wash the orange curls whenever Hinata was sick or had a bad day, or sometimes just because it felt nice. It felt nice to care for each other through small gestures like this. But usually, Hinata would talk non-stop in the process, mostly about trivial things, but that made it nonetheless fun to listen when he explained everything with the usual excitement and devotion in his voice. The wild gestures, however, could be quite troublesome while trying to fix his hair. This time, however, the entire room was eerily silent. Kageyama got up after rinsing out the soap and made a step to the door, but was immediately stopped by a hand around his wrist. Hinata said nothing and just looked at him with wide, questioning eyes. It didn't exactly help Kageyama understand, and he needed a moment to get what he was trying to ask. I'm going to get you a fresh towel and clothes. Also, I wanted to call Tadashi and Kei to come home early. There was something in the ginger's eyes he didn't quite understand at the mention of their boyfriends, but the hand around his wrist loosened and he proceeded with his plan. First, he got the towel and clothes and brought them to Hinata. After assuring himself that the smaller would be fine on his own, he went back downstairs to get his phone and call the others. He called Tadashi first, since it was more likely that he would be able to reach him, while getting a hold of Kei during his practice could be quite challenging. Hey Tobio, I need to go to my next class soon, so make it quick, yeah? He could hear some shuffling in the background and felt almost bad for interrupting him, but he deserved to know this. He needed to know this. Hinata got injured. There was a low thud on the other end of the line, followed by a moment of silence. I'm sorry, what? So, he got injured. What happened? Is he alright? Is he... He gasped. Kageyama could hear the starting panic in his voice. Are you in the hospital? No, nothing like that. He's fine. I mean, he will be. Just some bruises and cuts. What happened? I don't know yet. He won't talk to me, but it looked like he was attacked. Attacked? Yeah. I don't know why, or how, or just Suga knows about it apparently. Silence spread between them as Yamaguchi took in the news. I'm coming home. I'll be there in half an hour. What about your classes? I think I have everything under control here. He really didn't know, but so far he seemed to be doing fine. At least that's what he assumed. He didn't want Yams to get in trouble just because he was incapable of looking after their boyfriend alone. I know you have. This isn't about that. I need to know that he's okay. I need to see him. Okay. Just don't get in trouble. Oh, don't worry. This is an emergency. Everyone will understand. Hey, Naomi? He heard him talking to someone in the background, probably telling them to inform the professor of the situation. Okay, so... damn, the buses don't drive as frequently around this time. I'll be home in about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Should I call Kay on the way? No, I will do that. That's probably for the best. Just try to put it gently. I'm pretty sure he won't take this well. Kageyama nodded. He hadn't thought about it before, but now that he did, if he'd managed to reach him, he would definitely be worried. He would rush home as well, even if that meant running instead of taking the train, if that meant he would arrive here faster. Okay, see you in a bit. Look out for him. I'll hurry. Be careful. Of course. He hung up, and Kageyama was quick to call Tsukishima next. He internally cursed himself that he forgot to ask Tadashi to bring some pain medication, but decided to just ask the blonde. As expected, it took a while to get a hold of him. Long enough, in fact, to make him consider if he should check on Hinata once again first, but just when he started, the call was accepted. However, not by Tsukishima. It was one of his teammates who seemed obviously annoyed by his consistent attempts to interrupt the practice. He didn't even get a word in at first, too stunned by the grumpy "what?" "Kiyotani, give me that." The familiar voice got him out of his haze, but again he was interrupted before he could even say anything. "I hope you have a really good reason to call me now, out of all times, King." He loved to use the nickname when he was annoyed with him and wanted to make that point crystal clear. He had one for each of them. I don't know if you've noticed, but others need to practice for their place on the court. Kageyama rolled his eyes. He had long surpassed the point in which this was more than simply a little bothersome. Of course, Tsukishima knew that, otherwise he wouldn't say it. Can you get some pain medication when you come home? That surprised the other. Pain medication? What, did you manage to injure yourself on your day off? Or, please don't tell me you and the tangerine attempted cooking again. It's not me. Shoyo is hurt. He could tell that Tsukishima picked up on the fact that something was wrong because the mocking tone slowly vanished from his voice. What did he do? Nothing. He got hurt by someone else. A long pause. Then... What? What do you mean by someone else? Like, an accident? Does he need medical attention? No, He says it's fine, and it wasn't an accident. He could practically hear the middle blocker clench his jaw. Tobio, what happened? I don't know the details. He won't talk to me. It looks like he can't. He just broke down when he arrived and has been mostly quiet ever since. His free hand clenched into a fist as the rage bubbled up in his chest again. From the other end of the line, he could hear Tsukishima screaming something on the lines of, "Emergency, got to go," into the gym before heading to what must be their changing rooms. Okay, one by one, are you certain he doesn't need an ambulance or to see a doctor? That's what he told me, but he also said that Suga treated his wounds. He did. I saw the bandages. They both trusted Suga's judgment more than Hinata's in this case, simply because the latter often took it too far with injuries in favor of playing volleyball. Good. Now, you said someone else did it. Why? His teeth clenched. The injuries. What kind of injuries? Bruises, mostly. Some look like handprints. He could hear Tsukishima shutting his locker with more force than necessary. Go on. He has bruises on his neck and jaw, as well as on his ribs, and I'm assuming cuts on his knees because Suga wrapped them in bandages. What happened after he broke down? His words sounded more and more forced. I took him upstairs to the bathroom. I didn't know what to do at first and just wanted to treat the injuries, but most already were. I made him a bath, and then I called Tadashi, and now you. Good. Keep an eye on him. Make sure he doesn't feel nauseous or dizzy. If so, call an ambulance immediately. I'll be right there. Don't forget the meds. I won't. He hung up. For a moment, Kageyama stared at the phone incredulously before getting back to his senses and rushing upstairs again. His panic flared up when he didn't find Hinata in the bedroom as expected, but it subsided just as quickly, if not entirely, when he found him in the bathroom shortly after. Hey, why are you still here? Huh? I'm sorry, I felt a bit dizzy and thought it would be better to wait for you. He sounded so meek, and the words immediately set him off. He cursed himself for forgetting his phone downstairs yet again, Tsukishima's words still vividly in his memory. Hinata looked up hesitantly, recognizing the shock in his eyes as worry. It's not that bad, really. Just the stress. Kageyama took a small towel from one of the shelves as he noticed that Hinata's hair was still dripping on his shoulders and gently started to dry it. His hands wandered to his cheek and their eyes met. It was only briefly, since Hinata broke the eye contact almost immediately. Kageyama sighed. Are you sure? Are you absolutely certain that it's not bad? The ginger nodded. Okay. He placed a gentle kiss on his hair before lifting him up in his arms again and carrying him to the bed. He made sure the other was comfortable, but hesitated to join him and offer cuddles. That was until Hinata pulled him closer by his sleeve. Please stay. He nodded and climbed into bed beside him, wrapping his arms protectively around the smaller. A loud crash echoed through the house when Tsukishima arrived. Even from upstairs, Kageyama could hear him curse under his breath as he struggled with his shoes and jacket. Hinata flinched, but there was a small smile tugging at his lips as he recognized the voice of their boyfriend, rambling incoherent words, as well as very creatively insulting the door and the stairs and his shoes and in general everything between him and the ginger. He arrived at the bedroom, panting and sweating and still in his jersey from training. Shoyo. His eyes searched his. The light gold reflected nothing but worry, though it got an angry edge to it as he saw the bruises on the side of his jaw. Then again, seeing Hinata safe and sound in Kageyama's arms made a huge weight fall from his heart, even more so when he saw that the smaller was still awake and didn't seem to be in unbearable pain or apathetic. He faltered for a second, enough to calm down a bit. "Sho, are you in pain?" Hinata bit his lip, but nodded. "A bit." "How much? I mean, do you need to go to a doctor? Now!" He shook his head. "Please, let me stay." The blonde sighed while his eyes fell on Kageyama. He was met with the very same concern he felt. "Okay, but promise us to say something if it gets worse. I know how stubborn you can be, so promise." "I promise." "What happened?" His eyes became glassy again and his throat tightened. Instead of answering, he simply reached for the taller and pulled him closer, crying against his chest. TsukiYama's own tears spilled over as he squeezed his eyes shut and pressed a kiss to the orange curls. When Yams got home, merely half an hour later, he found all three of them cuddling and very much asleep on the bed. The stress must have gotten to them. His heart melted at the sight, and he was glad to see that Shoyo felt comfortable like this. The bruises tainting the image stung, but they could figure it out. They would help him, and if that meant cuddles 24/7, so be it. He chuckled a bit at his own logic. He couldn't allow the dread to overtake his thinking. He would be there for Hinata, that's what counted, and freaking out, for sure, would be far from helpful. With a sigh, he turned around, as much as he wanted to join them. He could startle Hinata if he did, and he really didn't want to wake any of them. Besides, if he'd rest now, there was nothing keeping his mind from wandering off to increasingly darker places. Better keep busy. Yamaguchi cleaned the kitchen and prepared food for all of them. He inspected the bag of meds Kei brought and sorted the stuff he had gotten before preparing some ice for the bruises. After everything was done, he went upstairs again to wake them for dinner. Upon seeing Hinata, the questions he ignored so far returned. Kageyama said Hinata couldn't tell him what happened, but also that Suga treated his injuries, so maybe he knows. Yamaguchi? Hey, I'm sorry that I'm calling so suddenly. I hope it's not bad timing. No, it's fine. I'm still on my way back home. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to distract you from driving. It's okay. You're on speaker. But no one is with me, so just go ahead. What do you need? Yam sighed in relief. It's about Shoyo. He got injured. A heavy silence filled the room. He said that you treated his wounds. Is that correct? Do you know what happened? He didn't tell you? No. I think Kageyama said he couldn't, that he broke down. Oh, Hinata. Yes, I know what happened. He wanted to keep it a secret for a little longer because Kageyama has his match in a few days. But I guess if you already know that he is injured, it doesn't matter much more anyway. He sighed. We got attacked. He didn't take our wallets or anything, so really I can't tell you why, just that it happened. We? You mean? Yeah, all three of us. But don't worry about the injuries. It looks mostly like some bruises and scraps. If you look out for any sign of nausea or fever and clean the wounds regularly, he should be fine. What about you? Don't worry about me. Shouldn't we, I don't know, call the police? I will talk to Daichi on Hinata's behalf if you want me to. Maybe he can give you some advice on how to approach the situation if Hinata doesn't feel ready yet to file charges. Thank you. Take care, and I hope he gets better soon. Thanks, you too. Young, something about the wording didn't sit right with him. It didn't sound like Suga intended to file charges himself. He just hoped that he would look out for himself as well. Thank you all for watching to the end. I hope you liked it. I hope you're curious for the rest of the series because, well, I'm already working on the next part, and yes, I know that my upload schedule is all over the place. I'm working on fixing that. Just classes have started again and it's all getting kind of stressful, but we got this. So yeah, I'm back. I'm trying again for every Saturday at the usual time. Don't know what that is for you in your time zone, but yeah. Oh jeez. Anyway, if you liked it, consider leaving a like because it really helps my channel grow, and if you don't want to miss out on anything in the future, consider subscribing. And now I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day.